Welcome to Figureoutable Conversations, the show where we sit down with people who've figured out how to build a life and business on their own terms. I'm your host, Stacy Anderson. Today's guest is Ron Davis, also known as Ron the Nomad, a full-time RVer, solo dad, and AI automation consultant who walked away from a 9 to 5 in tech and healthcare to build something more intentional. We get into mindset, legacy, road schooling his son, and how he's using AI as his own personal board of mentors. Let's get into it. Looked at it today, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so why don't you tell me, how did you become Ron the Nomad?
Sure. So I guess it's kind of getting to be a long story, but it's not that long. So in 2016, 2017, my oldest daughter, who's now adult, was getting engaged, getting married, working down this thing over the course of time, having babies down in Arizona. We're in central Illinois, and St. Louis, Missouri is where we were housed at the time. This is pre-COVID. And at that time, we were working for a sticks and bricks business. We would go into the office 9 to 5 every day. I was working, and my kid was going to private school, so I was taking him to school. I was driving into work, and then so I wanted to be able to see my oldest daughter when she's in Arizona, and so I thought, well, if I had a motorhome, then I could go and visit them for a couple months at a time, or at least a month at a time. We wouldn't have to just like fly in or drive in for a couple of days. And so I went to looking for a motor coach that would allow that, and we found a Class C at the time. And we did some part-time trips where, like, for a month at a time, we'd go to Arizona. A month at a time, we'd go to Seattle to visit my cousin, who's also in the tech industry. And over the course of time, that just transpired to a couple of months a year that we would be remote workers and remote traveling to sort of fulfill that goal of seeing family more. And then we all experienced the COVID pandemic time period. And that basically pushed us out of our sticks and bricks apartment. We didn't need to pay for that anymore because there was no point in staying in St. Louis because private school was closed effectively. And the business I was working for, most of the workers were already remote. We were like 70% remote, 30% in the office. And since I lived at the home headquarters, St. Louis area, we went into the office. If I had lived in Colorado, I would be a remote worker. So now that COVID at that point basically sent everybody home to be remote workers, and we just never went back. They left the office as basically skeleton crew that runs the office. They spent a year during COVID and a little bit after revamping that office space to be more of a co-working space, and then at that point we basically pulled the motorhome from St. Louis over to my family farm in Illinois and set up camp there. And for the next, I guess that was in 2020. So 6 years, we've been basically doing that same mode. We travel for the winter and the fall and the spring, and then we come back in the central Illinois area for the summer to help around the farm. And so we're going on 6+ years now. We've been traveling all the time outside of the summer, where right now we're kind of in our farm in Illinois, working here.
Okay.
So
yeah,
we've made a ton more friends, and we've interacted with a ton more people. We are much more social beings than we ever were before. I've had opportunities online that I would have never ventured into having had I not gone through that experience. So I know, and there's part of another reason why we've chosen more of an entrepreneurial path is in that community of RVers, there's a lot of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of people who have figured out how to self guide their finances, self-guide their jobs and their income and their revenue streams. And being around that environment gives a person confidence to know that you can do it too, because you see it happen. Like, you know how it is.
sure.
It's like it's almost like a peer pressure, but sort of in reverse. It's like a positive peer pressure.
Sure. Like, he's doing this. He had this idea and he
Yeah.
figured out how to do it.
I
Well,
think a lot
what's
of people
stopping
say
me?
this, but people don't realize it is that um, just because somebody is quote unquote been successful in what your eyes are doesn't mean they're any different than you are. It just means they've applied the time to do the work a little bit longer than you have. And that's really all it's a simple mindset shift for most people to recognize that it's what you now see as somebody successful has 10 years or 5 years of background behind them most of the time
Sure.
to get them to the point where you now see them as successful. If
Sure,
whatever
sure.
your definition of success is.
Yeah.
I wish I had thought about it younger. I think the part that hit probably home for me was probably when I started following Gary Vaynerchuk, and his perspective on it was you're young. And he was talking to like 40 and 50-year olds at
Yeah.
that point still too. Like you're young still. You have
Yeah.
50 more years potentially ahead of your
Yes.
life. If you don't like what you're doing, stop it and change.
Yes.
Like whether that was a personal thing he was talking about or a business thing or, career thing, it was like, and especially if you're 20 or 30, you know, there is nothing telling you have to stay where you are, not physically, but in the career, the path that you think you have to do. And and then he followed that up with, "You're going to die, and you don't know when that'll be."
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when
So
when you pair those two things together, it gives you an energy that is hard to describe to move forward. And I want to help people live and build a legacy going forward, as opposed to just a line item on a gravestone.
was one of my actually let's we'll get to that. You said in your bio you are a solo dad. Um, how has fatherhood shaped the life that you've been building?
So it's been intentional, especially since we parted ways with the company. And so um, the intention is that he goes through life with a different set of options than I did. And so I don't that and that isn't necessarily planned out. And so I think that's the feel people out on the outside look at that as loosey goosey education, like you're not really teaching them anything. And I take a different perspective, and it might be because he had primary school education to the point where it would have been fifth grade that we took him out of private school and we went to online or homeschool, road school, whatever you like to call it, you know. And since then, it's been a little bit of structure and more like we're in this location, we're going to learn about this location, and it's a state park or national park or museum or a landmark, um, and and so it's been my position that it's more impactful when you're in the environment to remember that piece of history or remember that thing you got educated. So um, the fact that we travel around, we intentionally do things he enjoys doing, first of all, because otherwise you don't get to do the things that may be less enjoyable. But he actually really does enjoy going to the science centers and museums and things like that to see the different things, which I, as a kid, probably wouldn't have cared as much about until I was more of an adult, because that's just um, well, so I had a different lifestyle, I think. And then I look back at my lifestyle. We were living in a rural community, small town. We had 120 people in my graduating high school class. Sometimes that's the whole, you know, um, so there's 400 people in the entire school, and sometimes that's the whole graduating class for some schools, right? So we're a small community where I grew up, and so I wanted him to have the visibility of the rest of the world at his fingertips. If he decides he wants to live wherever he wants to live when he's an adult, that he knows how to take action to get there. And so I'm purposely teaching him how to be entrepreneurial, how to um, uh, get ahead on his own feet, as opposed to following the culture of, go to school, get a job, live till you retire. Um,
Yep.
Not that that's bad, but I want him to understand there are options. Like
Hmm.
if you take that option, recognize that that is where it is. And if you take the other option, recognize that that is what it is also. There's risks in both. There's pros and cons of both. And there's not even a defined path. You can actually mix them up, right?
Hmm.
Hundreds of people have a full-time job and a side hustle that pays more than their full-time job. I know a couple. So I think that's the nut of it all, in a sense, is like um, we're building a portfolio company. I'm building these small businesses underneath that portfolio company, all for the idea that my kids and their kids have a foundation to grow off of. And it's not even a foundation that is just like my own random idea. It's a foundation that's been set in stone, in a sense, from some of the founding fathers of our country. They all had businesses of their own. They all had inventions of their own. If you go into the industrial age, you have the the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Carnegies, who all built businesses, family-oriented businesses, to leave legacy for their families and their communities. And so, at a small scale, for now, that's what I want to make sure that there's that kind of a legacy of some level that provides some independent thought for my descendants, so they don't have to sort of fall into the matrix of where I lived for my first 30 years. Get a job, get a career, get a wife, have 2 kids, because some of those things just don't work out. And
Right.
if they don't work out, then your mind goes like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And you sometimes, if you're still in that matrix, you just start the matrix over again. You just like a reset.
Sure.
We've all been in games where the game has got a reset option. I'm failing, so I just hit reset. And life for some works that way, and for a long time it's worked that way for me. But now I'm through that game away, and we've
Yeah.
started a whole new
Yes.
game.
Let's
And
just put a new game in. Yeah, just to buy a
yeah,
new game.
right. So I think, now it's the game of I'm in charge, I'm in control, I'm building ownership and sovereignty so that the rest of my participants in my life game can take over.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that analogy a lot. Is that you know, let's just throw this game away, this game that we inherited, right? This is the expectation of how we chunk through life, and we get married and we have kids, and um, is that really my game? Is that the game I want to play?
I was actually part
Let's.
of it. It's like I don't know that I want that game to be my legacy. Like
hmm
when somebody comes to putting something on my gravestone, I don't want it to be the first 30 years of my life. I want it to be the last 50 years of my life. I want it to be, we overcame that and we did something better. I don't know if better is the term right now, but that's all I can think of.
Yeah, no, and I
Different.
like that. I remember when we
We
talked.
escaped.
Yeah, I remember when we talked, I don't know when it was, a month or
Yeah.
so ago, on my community happy hour. And you don't, at this point, you're not claiming that you know that what you're doing is the best way.
No.
You're just hoping that you're doing what's best, that the best that you can think of at this time, and and learn from that, right? So I
Yep.
liked that a lot.
And I am like, it's 5 to 8 years of mentorship learning. Like I've actively followed and engaged in communities online that are people who are smarter than me on business, on life skills, on philosophy, on psychology, these things that I've taken in as like college education level mentorship. And now they all could be wrong too, but they're succeeding in life better than I am. So I'm gonna
There you go.
I'm gonna say that they're the professors in my life. They're kind of my board of directors. And to bring it down to like right now, I've incorporated a lot of like their content and their philosophies into my AI technology that represents what I believe and what I want to stand on and going forward. And so when I'm working in my AI space, I'm working with all those mentors as my board of directors. And so if I'm suggesting something that would be in line or against something that one of my mentors would be like, I wouldn't do that, then Claude will call it out on me. I don't
hmm
think I don't think uh, Alex Ramosi would actually do it that way. I think he would do it this way. And that, I mean, I've had that same expression put back at me.
Yeah.
So
And then
I
you
love
can
how I've
take that,
made that real.
piece and decide, like I will do that with people. Like I
Mhm.
see something from a person that I see that, well, both good and bad, right? But
Yeah,
something a quality that I admire in somebody. Okay, let me try that on in my life and see how that fits. And like I said, the same thing where I see how somebody is treating people, or um, you know,
yeah,
moving through their life in a way that I think, oh, nope,
no,
that's definitely not something for me. So
yeah,
yeah, so you definitely don't have to take on every piece of every teacher either. You can grab pieces from each teacher and throw out what you don't want.
Yeah, but you can also incorporate what you don't want into these technologies. So, like I can say, this is an example of bad behavior, and I can be very concrete, when I put that in there, or very nuanced if it needs to be nuanced. But like when I incorporated John Maxwell into the system, a lot of his teachings are on YouTube and Substack, and a lot of that content is in text form. I can just say, what does John Maxwell think about this? And it would give me back responses that are in line with his belief systems and philosophies, and I can decide, is that something I want to incorporate or not. Um, and so having I think I have 10 in there now of mentors that I strongly believe in their character, and I think that's been extraordinarily helpful with me embracing the technology more, because like I said, when in the beginning of 2025, I was done with technology. Like even with AI coming on the scene, I was like, I don't care where it's going because everybody's complaining about it. Everybody's making it look bad. The mantra, and it's still that way a lot of times in the media, is negative. It's negative, 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 drama, 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 and it's still the case. And um, when I came across a couple of what I'm going to characterize as AI educators in the human space and enabling and embracing it from a human level perspective, I got really warm feelings about that, and it really energized me back into the idea. It's like now I can see how I can apply this to level up not only my own humanity, but the people around me when they need it. And now I'm looking at it as when you build it right, and that's a very big key. When you build it right, you can absolutely make your life better in the AI space. So I think that's just where I'm dedicating my time now. That's like, all the way across the board. And then, yeah, there's a ton of other stuff that maybe not AI related, but it's technology related, and I'll do that for businesses because it helps them and it solves a problem. So I'm all about, like, right now is like, person or business, bring me a problem and let's establish how to solve that problem. And I just would forget this.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting the phrase I wanted to say, but um, the most dangerous words in uh, in any department or organization is, that's the way we've always done it. I'm like, okay, what if we did it different? Mass media that is sort of governing the idea that um, AI is going to take your job. AI is going to take your environment. AI is going to this. It's going to, hey, they're broadcasting so much of the negative. And then when they do broadcast the positive, they broadcast it so large that it feels negative to the average consumer. Like, for example, somebody in our age group, 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, they see a robot folding clothes, and they think, well, that's never going to be in my lifetime. And or like the idea that a roofer can roof their house. So a solopreneur business roofer, 1 to 2 employees, could be hired to roof somebody's house in a day with no roofers actually on the roof. So there are robots today that actually do that right now. There are businesses in Pennsylvania and New Jersey who, they are roofing companies. They're small companies, but they've incorporated robotics and AI into the technology. And they come out, they set up their robot around their house, and it pulls all the shingles off the pallets and puts them on the house correctly. Like, it's amazing. Like, I thought that's maybe a 4 or 5 year thing. And so I started investigating it, and no, there are companies doing that right now. And so I think there's that level of, when a news agency picks up on that, they broadcast it to all the roofers around the world, and all the roofers get, oh no, how do I do that? I don't have the money to buy those robots. I'm going to go out of business. They get this
Yeah.
scare factor. And I think it's on me and a bunch of other people in my space to stop the scare factor. to say it's not that hard. You can compete. There are ways to compete regardless, and just sort of calm the overwhelm. Hold on one second. I got to take care of a question here.
Sure.
And so, all right, so I'm back. I think there's when people say AI hype, it's not even just the AI anymore. It's the hype around AI. And I look at it as like there is behind every AI conversation, there's a bunch of humans that are still having to interact with it. And if there isn't, then that's the problem. And so I take the very strict approach is that you have to have human guardrails on what it is that you're doing until you know that you don't have to. And so when I'm building a system for a customer, we're building in a whole scale of AI asking you, is this what you want me to do? Is this what you want me to do? Is it? And then once you've answered that correctly enough times and you've taken out the wiggle room of nuance, then you can start to say, you can do this all the time. And you can put that into the system and say, in the system where it doesn't even prompt you anymore, it just says, hey, I did this because you told me I could do this in the past. And it's a evolution. It's a deployment implementation piece that everybody wants to skip. And I mean, everybody in the AI space wants to skip. They want to develop a tool and then sell that tool to a roofer or sell that tool to a business owner and or bunches of tools, as a couple of them I've seen. Like I've got a couple of guys I follow that have a whole plethora of business tools that they want to give, quote unquote, for a fee monthly to a business owner. And my position is for that fee or less, I can teach you how to build that thing that they're trying to sell you and you own it. And when you own it, you don't have to worry about Anthropic changing the algorithm or OpenAI changing their LLM or any of these other nuances that happen in the AI space because you own all of your context, you own all of your data, and you can go so far as to take the LLM stuff that most businesses need and put it all local. Like you can do most business work with local LLMs for a fraction of the price of paying renting fees on Anthropic or anybody else. And a business owner has choices, but they don't know they have choices because the media has told them that the roofer is going to robotic them out of business. That someday the AI is just going to get hired. Like I hear people talking about this. An AI is going to pick up the phone for a roofing company. They're going to schedule the roofers. Somebody will ship it with a Tesla truck because it's electronic and driven by a robot. It'll show up. It'll unload itself from the truck and start working on your roof. Like there are people who believe that'll happen, and I think that's probably right. I don't think that's going to happen tomorrow. I think it'll be 5 or 10 years. But let's say that does, then somebody has to own that, and it's not going to be a robot. Some human or some corporation is going to own that. Today, anyway, corporation can't be owned by a non-human, is my understanding. So there has to be a human behind every corporation today. That could change, I don't know, but but for now, any of the process that happens to do what I just described feeds back to some human who is in charge of it. And if it goes wrong, he's also responsible for it. And so that's the part that a lot of people miss in this whole conversation is that you can be that human. You can be that one roofer that does a bunch of AI stuff, or you can be that one tradesman, whatever the trade you are, that does that AI stuff. If you just start to embrace it today a little bit, because you're not behind, you're just touching this tip of the iceberg. Like I compare this to the internet before the internet was even popular. Like I was using web stuff in the early 90s before the internet was a thing. And if I had known, it's taken 3 generations of super hyped up new technology for me to pick up on this. Like if I had known that, I missed all these waves. I'm not missing this wave. I'm going to stay on it now. But at least I'm going to try to very dangerously allow it to expand upon that, which we know AI will do if it's allowed to. it'll hallucinate a new result. It'll hallucinate something that was underneath there. And so I tell people, like, even if you're just using AI for general consumer use, like chatting and asking questions, you want to get to the bottom of the sources that gave the result. And so I tell people, like, add this to the bottom of your prompt, whatever your prompt is, make it say, make it deliver a bibliography of sources that gave you the answer that you're giving me, so that it is now forced to come up with answers to how did I develop this response.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be surprised how more accurate your AI chats become when it has to show the answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I was a chat GPT girl for it, well, since I've been using AI, and I just started to introduce myself to Claude it's been about 2 weeks. And yeah, I'm kind of amazed that, because that it will then, I'll use the co-work and I will watch what it's doing in my different tabs, and amazing that I've published books, and I've gone through every step on the Kindle Direct and it's like, um, Claude did that for me. It plugged in all the keywords. It plugged in, and it's like, and then of course, then at the end, I've done all this. Do you want me to hit publish? Type of thing, so it just doesn't like publish it on on my behalf. I don't have 20 published books that I don't even know about, type of thing. But yeah, but like you said,
Cool, right? But on the other hand, it's like, well, no, I need to
yeah,
read the book
no,
at least.
and it's like email too. It's like I will not yet have it send emails, but I've got drafts that I can then look at and then decide if they need to be sent or if they need to be. And so far,
Sure.
it's all just like, yeah, look at it, send, look at it, send. So I get that eventually it can just communicate with my email for me in a way that I would.
Even with that in place, think about the time savings that you're getting from that. So if you're a person who has to reply to 100 emails a day, like on average, like a person can figure that out after a couple of weeks. They see what our average email replies are. If you can have AI generate a pretty good response and you just summarize and review that each day, you've just taken potentially 2 hours of your day and shrunk it down to 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And for a business operator who doesn't have 2 hours in their day, that gives them now time to strategize on the next big thing they want to do in their business. If
Yes.
you had 2 hours back in your day, like it's just that's a simple thing. The other, I have SMS conversations the same way. Like, you can have an SMS conversation that is actual part of your business because it's an employee completing a task, and that SMS comes to you. They completed their task, and now you got to go over to QuickBooks. You got to go over to the CRM and update those things because your employee doesn't have access to those things because you're the guy in the middle. And I'm like, if that is a consistent workflow, take that SMS, pass it into your CRM, have your CRM trigger QuickBooks, and then at the end of the day, you're looking at an invoice and you validate the invoice is accurate because of the background of knowledge you got, and you send. So you've taken yourself out of the middle, freed up an hour of your day or more, and now you can strategize on more stuff. And for most of us in the space already, that's an hour or two of work to set up for somebody, to be able to automate simple things like what we're talking about right now. And they can own it instead of applying to the plethora of online AI tools that do this. Like there's a ton out there, but you can own this entire thing in your own space, or you can rent it if you want to use Claude or Copilot, or if you want to use ChatGPT computer, Perplexity computer. They all can do it. It's which one are you comfortable with using if you want to rent it, or do you want to just own it on your own hardware, which we can also do. So, sorry, I went down a tangent, but
No, but I love that. And I think, is there a way, as we wrap up here, do you want to let the people know that are watching, like, because I can tell you are a problem solver, whether that has to do with business or with AI, computers, whatever, I can see that if I come to you with a problem, you will help me figure out how to solve it. So how can people reach you if they want to utilize your expertise?
So any of my socials, of course, but the easiest way to find me right now is using my domain is rondavis.pro. So
Okay.
anywhere you go on my socials should take you to rondavis.pro, and that is my like my link in bio. It has all my socials across the top. It has some of the services that I do. It's a way to contact me in there. So I just do that.
That's it for this episode of Figureoutable Conversations. You can continue the conversation in my Figureoutable Living community on School, where you'll find people encouraging each other as we figure out life together.